So, okay, I guess we're live. Perfect. So, hi everyone, and welcome to our live chat with a very impressive DN Unlimited conference speaker. My name is Evgenia, and I'm a head of content at DN Unlimited. It's a virtual conference that will take place on November 18th, 20th worldwide, and is a meeting point for data-driven professionals to get updated on the latest trends in the industry, and also, of course, network and connect with each other. So today we have invited Claire Jones, Chief Commercial Officer at What3Words, for a live interview. So Claire was featured in the 2019 Forbes 30 Under 30 list for technology and is very much involved with London companies tackling social and environmental challenges. And of course, she is the Chief Commercial Officer at What3Words. It's a company that basically divided the entire world into 3 meter squares. And that basically means that they've designed a completely new address system that just makes way more sense than what we're used to currently. So these 3-word addresses can be used to route cars, autonomous vehicles, drones, or delivering online, or simply given as a meeting point if you're somewhere in the picnic, right? So now What3Words is used in more than 170 countries and is being also adopted by governments worldwide. So this is definitely a big leap for a startup, a great progress. And we are very curious to know today a little bit more about What3Words' journey to mass adoption of their system, and how does data in particular, data analytics, data science, help them to reach this goal. So hi, Claire. Thanks so much for finding the time for the interview. And I'd like to start with the first question. So why do you think that What3Words is a data-driven company, and what does it mean to you being data-driven?
So, I mean, What3Words is about a fundamental shift in human behavior, right? So we've got to make it normal that when I say, let's meet for a picnic, I can say, let's meet for a picnic at Butterfly Piano Crayon. And that makes sense, right? So that's quite a different thing. We're not used to, that's not how we usually do addresses. And, you know, the whole idea with What3Words, the idea of taking this grid, giving every single square on the planet an address made of 3 words, that was all designed around ease of use. So we want it to be easier for people to find a place to meet. We want it to be really easy for you to deliver a package to somebody's door. I live in a flat in London, and I can't tell you the number of times the driver phones me and says I'm lost because my flat has multiple entrances and they're always at the wrong one. They're on the wrong side of the street. But also because we wanted to make sure, you know, if somebody's in an emergency, they can communicate a location, or if you're delivering, you know, goods to somewhere like an informal settlement or a refugee camp, you can do that as well. So the whole idea behind it was to make life easier and safer and better for people. But in order to do that, you've got to help people do something that feels quite weird, right? It feels quite weird to say to somebody, meet me for Kicks Invite Pencils. And so data is a really important part of this. We've got an incredible growth team, and they're obsessed with learning how to help people use What3Words in a way that makes sense for them. Because people use What3Words in totally different ways, not just between countries, which is really important, but also within countries. So if you think about somebody living in the countryside, the way they use What3Words is going to be totally different to somebody living in the city. And, you know, maybe somebody in Korea uses What3Words totally differently to somebody in Canada. So our growth team is obsessed with finding ways to help to understand more about how What3Words is used and make it even more usable for the people who use it.
Yes, that definitely sounds like changing the whole mindset, right? So it's very interesting how exactly your team is leveraging the data analytics and the data science, and uses data engineering for developing the core technology.
So What3Words isn't about tracking. So what we're not doing is tracking where people go and seeing, you know, where's your blue dot on the map and have you gone to this shop? That's not what we're doing. So we're not selling data. That's not what our business model is about. What we instead are really interested in is, what are the use cases? So data for us is a lot about finding out what are the use cases that people are using with What3Words with, and how can we help them use it better? So, for example, if you think about using What3Words to go hiking, right? People use what through words to go hiking, because if you want to meet someone, you're meeting some friends, you're going to go hiking together, maybe you've got to meet at a particular car park. And one of the things that helps us understand how people want to use what through words and how we can help them use it better is by looking at the types of addresses that are used. We won't know who's used it, but we might know, for example, actually we've seen, in the UK, actually since lockdown, one of the things we've seen happen is we've seen people start to use 3-word addresses for outside meeting points more and more and more. So national park, they're places that you might enter a national park. We've also seen lately people use what 3 words for accessible entrances. So businesses who are trying to make sure that their wheelchair entrance is easy to find are using what 3 words and putting that on their website. And so for us, by tracking use cases and seeing how they're used in our app and in our map and in our partner products, it's all about use cases, it's all about people, it's about use cases, but that really helps us understand how people are using what 3 words and why so many of them are using it and how we can get them using it in everyday life in ways that make their life easier or safer or better.
And if we're talking about the use cases in particular, right? So how do actually users interact with the product? And considering your mission for global adoption, so basically ambitious goal to actually change how we view and how we use the addressing system in the world. How does your team approaches data and analytics from the product standpoint of view? How to boost the growth?
So I think a lot of this is about understanding where in the journey a 3-word address is useful to somebody. So, for example, because we've now got clients in so many different parts of the world, we're starting to understand how people use it differently. So, for example, in South Africa, we saw during COVID, when COVID first hit, we actually saw more and more people using what 3 words on checkout pages for pharmacy. For when they're ordering something online in a pharmacy. And of course, what you're learning from that is people are at home, either because they've been told to be at home or because they feel safer at home, and they're getting the pharmacy to deliver medicine to them. Now, we saw that go up because of COVID. And so what you start to understand by tracking that and seeing that go up, you start to understand, wow, okay, people really do need what 3 words more than ever during a pandemic, right? And so because of that, we were able to learn and we're able to see what's working, and we're able to go, wow, okay, home delivery is going up. So what we actually did in the UK, because our growth team is so obsessed with getting this right and understanding the data and understanding how people are using what 3 words to help them, help their lives improve, what they were able to do is tell us actually in the UK and say, you know what, we think maybe people want to use it in the UK as well. No, we've seen this happen. So we've seen people use what 3 words to get home deliveries in a pandemic. Should we do some work in the UK? So we did. We actually started talking to more businesses in the UK, in Germany, in the US, and say, would what 3 words be useful to you for your home delivery? And more they said yes. So one of the really important things for us is that link between other bits of the business. Because I think in some cases you can have a growth team that have all this incredible data, but if they don't give it to the right people in the business, you don't act on it. Whereas what we're really lucky, because we're a small business still, we're about 150 people or so. That means when our growth team spots something, instantly they can get that information to the right person in the sales team or the marketing team, and they can say, you know what, let's act on this, let's build on it. And so for us, that meant we had, during the pandemic, we had something in the UK, we saw something like 800% increase in e-commerce use of 3 words, something along those lines. It's huge, but that's because we have a team that really cares about the trends and seeing what's happening and then responding to that and making sure our marketing and our sales team follow it along and respond to that as well.
Yeah, that's great to hear that it's such an agile process. Still, 500 people, maybe it's, medium size already, not a small startup. But yeah, it's quite important that the team actually gets it and able to act on it. Did you how expect that the pandemic would have actually a positive impact on your business?
No, I mean, it was so hard to know, right? Because what 3 words is also used a lot in travel. So people used what 3 words a lot in tourism and travel. So you can imagine when we started to see tourism go down, and we also saw events. So what 3 words is really useful in big events like stadiums and parks and festivals. So from our perspective, we've got these whole sectors that what 3 words is used so much by people and businesses in. And going into the pandemic, of course, we were really worried about that. What's going to happen and how's it going to go? But we're also very lucky that we're really very useful in emergency services and healthcare. We're very useful in logistics and home delivery. And so actually, as you saw some things dip, you saw other things really rise. And that, that's an incredibly lucky position to be in. Of course, we feel really grateful that our business has been able to respond and be useful, but And for us, it's not just about seeing that, it's been really great for the business. Seeing logistics increase has been great for the business, but of course there are lots of things that were concerning. We travel around the world and meet our clients, and those things have changed, and we've been worried about our teams in different countries and wanting to keep them safe. So there's been a lot of challenge, but actually some of the most amazing things, so for example, seeing hospitals use What Three Words to help direct people, because during a pandemic, if you're pregnant, for example, the last thing you want to be doing is going through an entrance near a COVID ward, right? You want to be protecting yourself and your baby. And seeing hospitals add 3-word addresses so that they can help people get safely to the place they need to go to get help, seeing people call for an ambulance using What Three Words and knowing it reaches them, those things during pandemic felt incredibly touching, actually. Like really, really touching to know that What Three Words was genuinely being helpful in this time, which is incredibly worrying and upsetting and awful for so many people.
Yeah, it actually has a lot to do with my next question, because I wanted to ask you about this humanitarian impact that What Three Words has. Yeah, so besides the better customer experience and improved navigation, the company really impressed everyone with contribution to solving social challenges, humanitarian challenges, right? So What Three Words is, as you mentioned, improving emergency services. It's used for even addressing in the refugee camps, the rapid emergency responses when basically there is a natural disaster and there are no street signs whatsoever, to find and help people, saves lives basically, right? So did you envision that that would be the case from the very beginning when you started the project, or did it just develop naturally?
It's a really interesting question, and so Chris, who's the founder of What Three Words, he set up What Three Words because he ran a music company and his musicians got lost. So that was where the problem that we were solving came from. So that wasn't about refugee camps, right? That was about sending some guitarists to a wedding and making sure they found the right place. But certainly I think when Chris was first thinking about it, he knew if this was a problem for musicians, it probably wasn't a problem just for musicians, right? He knew, and look, all of us, I've never met a person who's never had a problem with an address at some point in their life, like delivery, meeting people or getting lost. We've struggled with addresses for all kinds of reasons, or places that don't have addresses. So I think Chris certainly knew that this was a bigger problem than for the music companies. But I think the really interesting thing for me, over the last few years, has been seeing what companies do in ways we didn't expect. So the emergency service use has been really interesting, because from my perspective, I wouldn't have actually guessed that What Three Words would be that useful in an emergency, because in an emergency, you probably have one of these. You have a smartphone, and your phone should, in an ideal world, be able to transmit your location, right? It should automatically, my phone can send its location. I do it on WhatsApp all the time. I can send my current location. And from my perspective, that made me think, right, What Three Words is more about where am I going? Where am I delivering something in the future? It's not where am I now. However, actually, then we actually saw people literally use it in emergency. So I remember a few years ago seeing a tweet from a fire service saying, we used What Three Words when we're putting out a fire in a field. And that was really interesting, because our feeling was you probably don't need What Three Words, because it should just be a machine talking to another machine, right? Two machines, in which case they can actually share GPS coordinates and they don't need a 3-word address. That's about humans. But then what we discovered when we actually saw that use, we dug into it and we understood that actually, in reality, because of the way control systems are set up, because of data privacy rules, there's all kinds of reasons. Actually, when I call the emergency services, in many, many cases, they actually can't get my location automatically. They can't. And that means suddenly there is a place where What Three Words, where you're talking on the phone and you need to communicate your location. And then if I've got the What Three Words app on my phone, I can simply say it on the call, and they can find me. And that wasn't something I planned for. I think if you'd have asked me in 2015, should we talk to emergency services, I'd have been like, probably not. They're probably not. It's probably not that useful because it's current location. But actually, in reality, that's not how it works. And in the real world, there's a communication of location from a human to a human, and that's when What Three Words is useful. So from that to one of the projects I really love is a refugee camp. It's a long-term refugee camp, and an NGO got in touch. They got in touch with us and they said, we've got real issues because it's a permanent camp, but there's no street addresses. So if you're delivering medicine or food or just going to visit someone, you don't have a way to talk about where they are. So they actually trained a group of young people in the camp to look up What Three Words addresses on their smartphones, visit the home and say, this is your 3-word address, give them a copy of it, and say, you can use this if you need to communicate about where you live. And that that was really not that much to do with us. You know, the technology was there and the app was there, but this in reality was enacted by other people. It was other people, it was an NGO, and it was them doing the training and then seeing, you know, I haven't even been there, but they tell us how it's working, and that's pretty amazing. So, you know, I don't think if you'd have asked, if I expected that to happen, I don't think I would have known it would look exactly like that. So that's what's really amazing, is seeing, once you've got an app and it's free and you can use it anywhere in the world, people just take it and they do amazing things with it, things that you wouldn't have projected.
Right. So that's also I think the team is working pretty good, right, for developing the product really from the standpoint of the user journey, how it looks, and it's easy to understand, even though it's actually completely something completely different from what we're used to, right?
That's I mean, that's got to be led. Yeah, our product team. So our CPO Josh is obsessed with this, right? It's really important of getting that user journey right, making sure they understand it, and you know, even seeing where we've come from where we started. You can see how our product does that now, and the learning that's gone into that to getting it so good.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, just continuing the conversation about the social and humanitarian challenges, that now we have lots of them. Of course, we always had a lot, but you know, as we talked about the pandemic, we're also talking a lot about climate change right now, and how to deal with those challenges. So, how do you envision your product contributing to solving those in the future? Do you have any specific plan, or you rather see how it naturally develops into, you know, the specific humanitarian use cases?
I think we like it when it's led by the people with the problem. So definitely when we've seen what 3 words be used in disasters and humanitarian contexts, we've really found it's helpful when they're coming to us and saying, this is the problem we have, can what 3 words help? And we explain what it does, and they kind of run with it. And I mean, on that, thinking about the future, definitely seeing how drones can be used for deliveries has been really interesting. And people think about drone deliveries being pizza, and great, sure, I'm very excited about the one day I'm going to get a robot or a drone to deliver my pizza, but they're actually incredibly valuable. If you think about, for example, delivering medicine in very remote areas, it can be very it can be very costly to have to drive a big vehicle to that area. It might take a really long time, it might be really hard to get there might be mountains in the way, there's all kinds of reasons it'd be hard. A drone, if it can fly over them, can actually get there and get to the right place and deliver goods or medicine or food or anything. And what 3 words is really valuable there, because if you want to specify an exact location, you know, the roof of a bit of the hospital, or the you know, the place outside, or the place in your garden for your pizza, all of that, suddenly it becomes really valuable. If I can just say apple banana spoon, and that refers to that 3 meter by 3 meter square, suddenly I know my drone might be able to deliver something to me there, or indeed, you know, in a disaster, take a photograph of a particular area or respond to a fire in a particular place. So one of the things that I'm quite excited about is, as these future technologies come in, how what 3 words can be plugged in to help people, you know. And that's not to say, I mean, there's lots of ways it's useful today. And right now, I mean, we talked about COVID a bit, but I mean, this picture behind me, you can see this is a park in London, and you can see this 3-word address, Vent Helps Cape. But of course, what we're trying to do right now is socially distance and meet safely. And there's all kinds of ways people are using what 3 words today to keep themselves safe and keep each other safe as well.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, definitely. And just talking about the industry of basically geocoding, right? So what kind of developments do you see there with all these emerging technologies that we're talking about right now, that are not there quite yet, but definitely are coming up in the next years, like drone delivery, right? Autonomous.
Huge spike in home delivery. And as a driver, what you really want is to know exactly where you're stopping. You don't want to have to build in a 20 minutes to get lost when you can't find the right entrance in the estate or the right side of the building, and have to park and then get out and ask for directions and then get back in and park somewhere else. So more and more we see how important the machines are in helping us route properly and helping us find our way. And then if you wind that forward a little to the way autonomy that you just talked about, I really need to trust my machine. If I'm not driving, or if there's no human driving me, I really need to be able to trust that machine is going to take me to the right place. Because if I'm going to trust it to take me there, I need to be able to put in the address and know it's going to take me to the right place, because it's much harder to say to a machine, oh yeah, just keep driving. There's like a pub on the right. If you look, you'll see the pub. Near the pub, you can't do that. That's not how you might be able to do that to a taxi driver that's a human. You can't do that to a taxi driver that's a machine. So more than ever in the coming years, this geocoding that you talked about, we're going to need accuracy more than we've needed it for a while, and it's really useful in deliveries and ride hailing and driving. But as soon as those journeys, deliveries or ride hailing, are being done by machines, it's going to become really, really important that the consumer can trust when they put in an address, they're going to get to the right place.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much, Claire. So my last question would be about your presence at the DN Unlimited conference, and that would be great if you could share a sneak peek into your talk and what the audience can expect to hear from you.
Sure. So I'm going to be talking about voice. So voice is one of the, certainly one of the technologies I'm really excited about for loads of reasons. But I'm going to be talking about voice and how this changing world where we speak to our devices, how that affects human-machine interaction, and what you've got to think about when you're designing systems with voice in mind. Because actually, voice and typing are very different, and the way you design products and systems around that is pretty different. So that's what I'm going to be talking about, with a bit of thinking about how we thought about it at What Three Words in the design at the beginning of the system, and also in the products that we have right now, how we think about voice and how that changes things when you're launching these kind of products.
That sounds awesome. So I'm definitely looking forward to that, and looking forward to seeing you again at the DN Unlimited conference. So thanks so much for joining us today. And if you guys want to hear more from Claire, come to DN Unlimited conference. Well, virtually, yeah. So make sure to sign up at detonators.io/conference. You can also find the link to sign up in the post. And we hope to see you there for insightful talks and, of course, lots of networking. So thanks so much and have a great evening. Thanks, Claire.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.